Well, I want to begin with a question for you, and the question is this. There's a widely held belief, I believe, that the way you can start, grow, and create a fabulous, successful entrepreneurial business is this. Number one, come up with a great idea. Number two, write a killer business plan. Number three, go raise some venture capital. Number four, maybe pivot along the way, and in a couple of weeks, you'll be rich. Right? Isn't that the prevailing notion that we have? So question for you, is that fact or is that myth? Well, of course, it's a myth. That's not really how most successful businesses start. And in fact, the vast majority of successful, fast-growing entrepreneurial companies never raise any venture capital. They never raise any venture capital. So I'm here to persuade you today that actually the gilded streets of Mayfair or the sunny, hills of Palo Alto are probably not the places that should be your first port of call. I want to do that by telling you a story, and it's a story about a guy, there he is, who built a business with his partners in Denmark starting in 2003. In 2003, Klaus and his partner, his first partner, Balder Ulrich, made an observation about the internet. They said, the internet ought to be the next great thing for advertisers, but it's actually not working. In those days, if you recall, we had banner ads, and that was about all we had, and they weren't working very well. People were clicking on them, but weren't following up on the ads. The ad rates weren't very good for the advertisers. It wasn't very good. And the two guys said, you know what the internet needs and the advertising world needs? It needs video. And it needs video for advertisers that will be so cool that when somebody receives it, they say, I've got to send this on to my friends, and it will go viral. So they started a business by that name. They found somebody with somebody they knew with a business and said, could we create for you a viral video campaign that we hope will sell you some goods? And they created their very first one, and it worked. And then they went to somebody else and created another campaign with a person paying in advance to create the campaign. Then they would host the video, distribute the video, and very importantly, measure the viral impact of that video as it was distributed widely. Well, the business began to grow organically. And in 2005, something very interesting happened. YouTube launched. Do you think that's good news or bad news for Mollins and his company? Turned out to be really good news. Why? It made online video cool. And all of a sudden, everybody was talking about online video, but of course, YouTube wasn't in the business of creating, hosting, distributing, and then measuring the viral impact of promotional videos. But who was? Go Viral was, of course. And so, at the Cannes Lion Advertising Festival in 2005, that's the big trade show where the entire European ad industry comes together each year, they were on stage talking about the power of viral online video. And they had created a little 30-page primer that went into everybody's goodie bag about the power of viral online video. Well, if you're on stage at Cannes talking to the entire European ad industry about viral online video, guess what? You must be the experts, right? So the business began to grow organically, 10 million Danish kroner, the next year 20 million, the next year 40 million, the next year 60 million, and on the way they said, actually, we don't have to create these videos. The ad agencies can do that and would like to do that, and their clients would probably like them to do that. We don't need to create the videos and be a service business. We can convert this service business into a product business. We'll just host, distribute, and importantly measure the impact of these videos that go viral. So the business grew, and In 2011, they sold the business to AOL, which wanted to come to Europe, and sold it for just short of 100 million US dollars. They had never put a single dollar or euro or Danish kroner into the business. It had been entirely funded by the customers' payments for hosting, distributing, and measuring the impact of their viral videos. To the finance types in the audience, how's the ROI? Pretty good. Okay. So I'd like to leave you with 3 lessons here. Lesson number 1, you can do this too in the business you are in now or the business you'd like to start. If a 19-year-old university student named Michael Dell in a dorm room at the University of Texas can convince people to send him money for computers that he will deliver 2 weeks later, you can convince somebody to pay you in advance too, okay? Number 2, there's not just one way to do this. Turns out there are 5 ways to do this, and here they are. The way Mosholm did it is a service-to-product model. He started out delivering services, create the video, host it, and so on. But over time, they figured out, well, that's actually not where the value is. The value is in converting this to a product. So that's what they did. And by the way, that's the same thing that Bill Gates and Michael Dell did, Bill Gates and Paul Allen did to start Microsoft. What they did in the early days was to write operating systems for all the nascent PC players. Well, after a while, they'd written so many of them that they said, actually, even though each one of these was a different service, they all kind of look the same. Could we put it in a box and call it MS-DOS and just download it with a PC or sell it in a shrink-wrap box? That's when the value for Microsoft got created. There are pay-in-advance models like Michael Dell. That's what he asked to do, right? Pay me in advance, I'll give you the computer later. Consultants do that. People who design your new kitchen do that. Long been a well-known thing to do. There are subscription models where we subscribe to things, right? What do we subscribe to today? Netflix, cable television, periodicals. When do we pay? At the beginning. When do we get the subscription? Then over time. But meanwhile, the provider of that subscription has hard cash that he can use to grow the business. There are scarcity-based models, and there's a business in France called Vente Privée that has been modeled now all over the world that has created not only a fast-growing business called flash sales, but a whole industry of flash sales companies that put something online for a very limited period of time, maybe 3 days. They run a video. They get people to put their credit cards down and buy the goods. At the end of the 3 days, they submit a purchase order to the vendor, and later the vendor ships the goods. And when do you suppose the vendor gets paid? 30, 40, 50, 60 days later. Meanwhile, the seller has the customer's cash. Okay. And then there are matchmaker models, of course, like eBay and Airbnb, that just bring buyers and sellers together, but never actually own the goods. And as a result, they have very little investment, and they can grow the business very fast. Okay, I said there are 3 lessons. Number 3, will this work for every single new venture? No, it won't. At least I don't think it will. But I've been surprised for how many different kinds of ventures I find that these 5 models work. They work for goods, and they work for services. They work in B2B settings and in B2C settings. Now, could you build a biotech business this way? I'm not so sure. Clinical trials, discover the compound, that takes a lot of money, right? So maybe you can't do that. Could you build a hydroelectric dam on some fast-moving water in India in order to provide electricity that India so desperately needs today? Well, I'm not sure you could figure out a way to pre-sell that electricity, although who knows? But I'll tell you a story about one Indian guy who did something very interesting with a pay-in-advance model. His name is Vinay Gupta. In 2003, he was in the travel industry, and he noticed something that wasn't quite right about the travel industry in India at the time. If you wanted to fly from your small city in India to Delhi, let's say, where do you suppose you got your ticket to fly in 2006? At a travel agent, right? No online in those days in India. So you'd go to the travel agent, a mom and pop travel agent, and the travel agent will tell you, terrific, come back tomorrow and I'll tell you when you can fly and how much it's going to cost. Because they had no online ticketing, no real-time ticketing capability. Gupta's genius was that if I could give them real-time ticketing capability, that would be great for their customers, and it would also be great for them competitively against other travel agents because they could issue the ticket right now. And if I could do it in volume, I could probably give them better commissions than the airlines are giving these mom-and-pop travel agents who deal with them one-on-one. So he started in Bangalore and knocked on some travel agent doors, and he said, here's the deal. If you will give me a rolling deposit of $5,000, so you can issue tickets against that, right? So there's never any credit issues. I will give you two things, a laptop with connectivity into the global distribution system for air tickets, and I will give you better commissions than you are now getting. Would you play ball? In 2 months, he signed up 170 travel agents, 100 in Bangalore, 70 in Chennai. Do the math. 170 travel agents times $5,000 rolling deposits. How much money has he got to start and grow the business? $850K. Do you think that goes a long way in Bangalore in 2006? That business last year, top-line revenue, just its little slice of the ticketing volume done in Indonesia, Pakistan, India, and the Philippines, where they now do business, was $500 million, and the business is 8 years old. Would that be fast enough growth for your entrepreneurial venture? Okay. So, can it work for every venture? I don't know, but I'll be surprised if creative entrepreneurs like these don't find new ways to do it. So, in a nutshell, I think we've always known, actually, that the customer is king in our ventures. Without a customer, you really don't have a business. But I think what we didn't know or didn't remember or had maybe forgotten is the customer can be our VC, too. Thank you. I wish you good luck with your ventures, and I hope you build a rapidly growing, high potential, and fabulous customer-funded business. Thank you.